Hello viewers, welcome to Medullology. The human control and coordination happens at two levels. One is at the nervous level through the nervous system. The other is at the chemical level through the endocrine system. In today's session, we would be discussing about the human brain, which is the chief control center of the central nervous system. The human brain is a delicate organ. It needs thorough protection, and for protection, it is guarded by the cranium, that is a brain box. The cranium is made up of 8 different bones, but they are into an immovable joint, which is capable of giving even more firm protection as compared to any other movable joint. But this is not enough for the protection. There are 3 membranes inner to the skull. Close to the side of the skull, the first membrane facing outwards is the dura mater. This dura mater is fibrous in nature and helps in rigid protection. The middle membrane is called the arachnoid, which is a mesh of network and cushions the brain. The innermost one is called the pia mater. The pia mater is actually very highly vascular, but all these 3 membranes add extra protection to the brain. There is more of protection meant for the brain, and that comes through the cerebrospinal fluid, a fluid that fills any empty space, the ventricles, and even runs through the central canal of the spinal cord. Now, how much does a brain weigh? It occupies 2% of the total body weight of any individual. So, for a full-grown adult, it is around 1 kg 350 grams to 1 kg 500 grams. But surprisingly, it consumes good amount of oxygen which is taken into the body. That is, the consumption of oxygen accounts to 25% as compared to the whole body. The same condition is with the energy consumption. So the energy that the brain consumes is also very close to 20 to 25% of the requirement of total body energy. Now, what are the different parts in the human brain? There are several parts in the human brain, but if we view the brain from its external surface, say after opening the skull and the meninges, on its outer external surface we will find 3 basic parts: the cerebrum, cerebellum, and the medulla oblongata. Of these, the cerebrum is the largest part of the brain, and this cerebrum is thrown into huge number of convolutions, which not only increase the surface area of the brain, but this also allows to accommodate the huge number of neurons who are into the cerebrum of the brain. The cerebral cortex is thrown into upper folds and lower grooves. The upper folds are called the gyri. Each is called a gyrus, and the plural is gyri, whereas the lower grooves are called the sulci or the singular sulcus. On the cortex or on the outer surface of the cerebrum, the cytons of the neurons are found to be embedded, and these cytons are definitely with a denser nuclear area which has the nucleus, the perikaryon and Nissel's granules. That's why the cyton of the neuron makes the grey matter, and hence the cerebral cortex is made up of grey matter. When we look deeper into the cerebrum, we find it is mostly made up of white matter. The white matter, which is principally composed of large number of axons. Now, amongst this white matter and the grey matter and their positioning, which are actually due to the different parts of the neurons being concentrated there. I also spoke to you that there are grooves, and these grooves lead into cerebral fissures. A large groove at the center makes the cerebral fissure, which partitions the cerebrum into two equal parts, the cerebral hemispheres, namely the left cerebral hemisphere and the right cerebral hemispheres. But these two cerebral hemispheres do not sag down on either side. Then how is it positioned properly in place? There is a tightening or binding at the center by connective tissue layer which is fibrous, and that is called the corpus callosum. Cerebrum is called as the intelligence box. Functionally, this cerebrum is capable of maintaining intelligence, consciousness, willpower, and it can also control the voluntary actions of the muscles. It can control the subconscious as well as the unconscious mind also. That is how your dreams are generally reflections of some of your ideas which you happen to store in your lifetime. The cerebrum, concerning the intelligence, it is into several factors if we divide and try to find out what are they actually. Intelligence can be headed under planning, reasoning, invention, memory, thinking, speech, emotions, and language learning. Although we know that the number of neurons in the cerebrum is not as high as in the cerebellum, the number of neurons are indeed much less. It accounts for around 10 to a maximum of 20 billion neurons in the cerebrum. But its functional activity is very, very huge. Comes to the next part of the human brain. This is located at the base and under the cerebrum. This is called cerebellum. The cerebellum has no convolutions, but it has numerous furrows, and the central white matter appears like a highly branched tree, while on the upper surface it is also packed with the cytons. So the upper layers of the cerebellum is also made up of grey matter, while the highly tree branch like structure which is in the inner surface of the cerebellum is indeed made up of white matter. They are the similar pattern of arrangement of the cytons and axons in both the cerebrum as well as cerebellum. Now let us know what are the functions of the cerebellum. Cerebellum helps in maintaining balance of the body, and it coordinates the muscular activities as well. Maybe an impulse of the muscular action originates in the cerebrum, but the coordinated function is indeed dealt by the cerebellum. Cerebellum is vitally made up of more number of neurons. It occupies 60 to 80% of the neurons in the little brain, which is the cerebellum. Comes to the next visible part of the human brain is the medulla oblongata. The medulla oblongata sits at the base of the skull. This is little triangular in shape, and this medulla oblongata does have very important function, having the cardiac center which can control your heartbeat, also having a respiratory center which can control the breathing movements. It can even control several other inflammatory actions of the soft organs in the body. It can help maintain the process of peristalsis, swallowing, blood pressure, and any other activity of the internal organ who are inflammatory in their function. Medulla oblongata is a part of the brain stem. At the tip of the brain stem is the midbrain, followed by the pons, and finally the medulla oblongata. Now let me explain the parts other than the medulla oblongata. The midbrain contains unique nerve fibers and some cranial nerves. And this midbrain has a role in reward pathways and in pain suppression. This also contains the visual and the auditory reflexes. The midbrain has parts like colliculi, tegmentum, and peduncles. Comes to the lower part, which is lower to the midbrain but lying above the medulla oblongata. That is called pons. This pons is the relay center for impulses from one hemisphere of the cerebellum to the other, thus coordinating all impulses within the cerebellum. The midbrain is capable of transmitting the impulses between the cerebrum, cerebellum, and the lower parts of the brain stem as well. Other than these parts that I have mentioned in the structure of the brain, there are further more parts which are into the internal anatomy of the brain. Those will be dealt out in the successive session to give a more detailed understanding of the functional and the structural parts of the human brain. Thank you so much. Please do like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you once again.